Hello, this is Alan, welcoming you to the 1976th edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper, Dateline 23rd of October 2014. The readers this week are Sonia, Phil, Jenny and me, with Jason on the controls, and Ian sitting by overseeing. The items that we will be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser, and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. Our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prie, Fernand Bouillon, Harry Breuer, and performed by Jean-Jacques Perry, and is used with his kind permission. Local stories this week include a rallying cry from the Enfield Advertiser, Tell Us the Truth About Hannah, Keep informed about hospital site plans, Boulevard planned as the backbone of 1.6 billion development, and it's a diamond celebration for childhood sweethearts. If you're experiencing any problems regarding receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 020-8805-6578. She is your listener's representative and will be pleased to help you. Now Sonia will read the first item of local news. Over to you, Sonia.
Boulevard planned as the backbone of a £1.5 billion development. Plans have been unveiled for a boulevard that council chiefs say will form the backbone of the first phase of the £1.5 billion Meridian Water development. Enfield Council's Cabinet is expected to give the go-ahead this evening for the road, a central causeway linking the eastern and western sides of the proposed development located between Angel Road, Edmonton and the River Lee. The authority, which intends to borrow £14 million from the government to fund the road, says the 26-metre-wide, tree-lined city street, with segregated routes for cyclists and pedestrians, will transform the area between Glover Drive and the river. It believes that funding the construction of the boulevard itself will give developers the confidence that the scheme is definitely going ahead and bring forward more quickly the 2,650 new homes that are part of the planned first phase. Describing the decision as a milestone, Ahmet Oykana, Cabinet Member for Housing and Estate Regeneration, said, "With detailed plans for the boulevard, this scheme is becoming reality now. We are pressing ahead and it is happening. I am very excited because we are all aware of the shortage of housing in the borough." If agreed, the council says the boulevard will form the backbone of the development, the core element of the scheme around which new neighbourhoods will be built. The council hopes to see the creation of 5,000 new homes, 3,000 new jobs, and improved public transport links and infrastructure including schools, shops and a police station. Edward Smith, Conservative spokesman for housing, said, "We are not opposed to the council's approach, as this is a big scheme and the public sector has to take a lead. But it still has a number of hurdles to cross. They have been at this for 5 years now and need to make more progress." Last week, the council announced that negotiations with National Grid for the proposed purchase of the first site of the development were close to completion, a year after councillors decided to buy it. The council is also negotiating about 2 adjacent sites, one owned by IKEA and another by Dwyer Property plc. If agreed, it is hoped that construction work on the boulevard will start in April.
Childhood sweethearts have revealed that the secret to their 6 decades of happy marriage is kindness and consideration. Audrey and Harold Mills celebrated their diamond wedding anniversary on Saturday with their ever-growing family. After first setting eyes on Audrey when she was 12 years old, Harold, who was then 14, admitted it was love at first sight. World War II interrupted their courtship as Harold joined up to fight the Nazis in 1943 when he was 17. Despite being separated by distance and the ravages of war, the couple wrote to each other throughout the conflict, despite Harold admitting that in his tank division there was not much room to spare for storing love letters. After Harold was demobbed in 1946, it was difficult to start a life together as the Blitz had left London with a severe post-war housing shortage. There was nowhere to live in those days, he told the Advertiser. Of their 60 years together, they have lived at the same address in Goat Lane, Enfield, throughout, he added. We have never had a row. That must be a record. The real secret to being happily married is to always be kind and considerate to each other. On the day of their wedding, the couple remember a damp, miserable, rainy morning in 1954. They had the first bus strike on that day, and so some of my relatives were stranded as they lived in Pinner and Harrow, recalled Harold. They managed to get to Oakwood, which was called Enfield West in those days. Harold, who worked in the Clock House nursery in 40 Hill, Enfield at the time, went and picked up his relatives in one of the nursery's vehicles. They all sat on boxes in the back of the lorry, remembered Audrey. Even with the rain and bus strike, the whole family made it to St John's Church in Clay Hill, North Enfield, where Harold was church warden. The couple enjoyed a family get-together with their 3 children, Janine, 58, Andrea, 56, and John, 48, their 6 grandchildren, and 8 great-grandchildren.
The Royal Free London NHS Hospital Foundation Trust planning application for the future use of the Chase Farm Hospital site is to come forward on November the 21st at an Enfield Council Planning Committee meeting. The plans can be viewed at the council offices before this and comments or objections registered by residents. The site has been split into 3 parcels of land, 1/3 for NHS use, the other 2/3 are mainly for mixed housing with a similar site for a junior school. Much of the hospital site is to be demolished and on the new allocated land, flat-roofed prefabricated hospital buildings, which I describe as pods, will be assembled off-site and stacked on-site to 4 stories high, the largest at the bottom, which will allow extra pods to be added as needed, like an added theatre or toilet. There will be areas of space on the site, undeveloped for possible future use. We were assured that there is no possibility of the A&E returning to Chase Farm or the consultant-led maternity and children's services. There will be an assessment area for the elderly and children, but the qualification of staff to do this I am unaware of. There will be an urgent care centre there manned by GP and nurse coverage and a possible GP surgery supplied by Enfield's GP Clinical Commissioning Group. There will be outpatient clinics and an elective care unit which will carry out straightforward operations only, like hernia, hip and knee operations. There will also be a maternity unit, but this will only be an outpatient service, not a midwife birthing unit. For any questions that you may like answered or dates of future meetings, there is this email address: rfcfhstakeholders@nhs.net. Among concerns are prefabricated buildings which can be assembled and demolished quickly, and APMS, which stands for Alternative Provider Medical Services, which could see the private sector provide some NHS services. And that was a letter from Ivy Baird of Cheshunt.
Wow. The Enfield Advertiser is issuing a rallying cry to the authorities to do everything in their power to get justice and answers for the family of a tragic student who died on a once-in-a-lifetime holiday 2 years ago. Hannah Defoe, who lived in Winchmore Hill with her parents and brother, travelled to the Caribbean island of St. Lucia in July 2012. She went with her cousin and aunt, but she was only a few days into the holiday when tragedy struck. She leapt into a pool at the Juliet's Lodge Hotel in Vieux Fort on the evening of July 25th and was electrocuted, dying moments later. It took emergency services an hour and a half to pull the 20-year-old performing arts student from the water. Fire crews received electric shocks when they touched the metal stairs leading to the pool and when they tried to lift Hannah onto dry land using special equipment. However, despite a campaign by her parents, Hope and Matthew Defoe, assisted by solicitor Janice Brennan, the family have been waiting for answers into their daughter's death ever since. Last week, more than 2 years after the accident, the family were left distraught after the UK inquest was adjourned for the 5th time, after it emerged that bureaucratic delays in St. Lucia have dragged out the inquest in that country, meaning no inquest can be held here. As you can imagine, the family is in despair, Miss Brennan told the Advertiser. The Foreign Office is applying some pressure, but nothing like the amount required. Before Christmas last year, the Foreign Office was helping Miss Brennan communicate with the St. Lucian authorities. However, when the Advertiser contacted the department, the only response provided was, "The Foreign Office cannot comment on individual cases." Miss Brennan explained, "The inquest into Hannah's death has been going on in fits and starts for months, and no one can tell us when it is likely to come to an end. Questions that we have asked remain unanswered. We understand that there is little the Foreign Office can do on our behalf in a foreign country, but St. Lucia is a Commonwealth country. There is a British High Commissioner out there, which should, at the very least, facilitate some level of communication, but it hasn't." Miss Brennan said that the family was backing the Advertiser's campaign to get the truth of what happened that day in St. Lucia. "All Mr. and Mrs. Defoe want is to get justice for Hannah and to find out the truth of their daughter's death," she said. The inquest in St. Lucia continues, and no end date has been given to the family.
A credit union has enjoyed a bumper payday thanks to a £1,000 donation from the council. Enfield Credit Union was presented with a cheque after Enfield Council won the 2013 National Stop Loan Sharks Award, scooping a £1,000 prize. The council wants to promote ethical banking and help the credit union, which is owned and controlled by its members, in its fight against loan sharks. The money will be used to help residents manage their money more effectively and make people less likely to fall prey to loan sharks. The union is offering the first 100 new customers £10 when they open a savings or loan account. Chris Bond, Cabinet Member for Environment and Community Safety, said, "Loan sharks are parasites, preying on the poorest and most vulnerable members of society, and we are determined to take them out when we find them, while helping people who are falling prey to them in the first place. I am delighted we have been able to help the Enfield Credit Union support residents in managing their finances, so they are less likely to fall victim to loan sharks. The whole community needs to work together to tackle this issue, and I'm delighted with the support they are offering." The funding comes as part of a wider effort to tackle illegal moneylenders. The council is working in partnership with the government and Enfield Police to target unscrupulous moneylenders in the borough. Last month, Operation Borago saw 4 suspected loan sharks arrested at addresses in Enfield and Essex, and drugs, documents and large quantities of cash were recovered. Mr. Bond is urging residents who are involved with a loan shark to call the 24-hour confidential illegal money lending hotline on 0300 555 2222 to obtain advice and support. For advice on managing their finances, residents can also contact Enfield Citizens Advice Bureau on 020 8375 4170.
More than 1 in 3 GP practices in the borough do not have a website, even though they will have to offer online appointments and prescription renewals from next April, a survey has found. The lack of an online presence was revealed in a new report by Health Watch Enfield, the borough's health watchdog, which launched an audit of 49 GP practices after it had been inundated with concerns from residents about GP services. In particular, patients were having difficulties in making appointments and finding appropriate information about out-of-hours services. The watchdog found that only 63% of practices currently have their own website. This has raised concerns because from April 2015, it will be mandatory for GP practices to offer online appointments and prescription renewals. Of those with a website, 94% included information about how to complain and 90% provided information about patient participation groups. However, only 5 websites included information on interpreting services that was easy enough for auditors to locate. Auditors found that 96% of practices surveyed had correct out-of-hours information on their answer phone message, while only 1 Freezy Water Primary Care Centre in Aylands Road failed to include any message. Healthwatch Enfield Chief Executive Lorna Reith said, "We believe it is important that patients have easy access to information and are pleased that most practices are providing this. Our audit highlighted areas where there were problems, and we were also pleased at how quickly a number of practices came back to us to say they'd put things right. However, we remain concerned about the number of surgeries that appear to have no website and at the limited number who provide information about interpreters. We have raised this with both NHS England and the Enfield Clinical Commissioning Group. A draft copy of the audit was sent to every practice in the borough, and Healthwatch has been updating details on its website as and when practices provide them. For the most up-to-date information, visit www.healthwatchenfield, all one word, .co.uk.
A dimly lit alleyway on the borough's boundary with Haringey, once notorious for litter and filth, has been spruced up, but only as far as the border with Enfield. The alleyway that runs alongside the railway track outside Bowes Park Station to Bounds Green Road had, until recently, a pervasive air of neglect, and had even been nicknamed Poo Alley. But after a string of complaints from residents, Haringey Council bosses took matters into their own hands and set out to clean up the litter-strewn pathway. Haringey Councillor for Bounds Green Ward, Ali Demirci, told the Advertiser that he and his colleagues had seen for themselves the poor state of the alley as they walked through the area, and decided to roll up their sleeves and to get their hands dirty. We asked Network Rail to meet us at the site, as they own the land, and they were a fantastic help, he said. As councillors, there is no job too dirty or too big for us to tackle. However, while much of the alleyway has been given a new lease of life, Commenters on the Bows and Bounds Connected Neighbourhood Forum wryly pointed out that the section of the alleyway that is classed as being in the borough of Enfield looks somewhat more neglected than the Haringey side. Haringey's Cabinet Member for the Environment, Stuart McNamara, told the Advertiser, "It is not our job to clean up Enfield, but we are talking to our counterparts, the Bows Ward councillors, about this." Mr Demerci added that clearing the rubbish was only the beginning of a fresh bid to clean up the whole borough. "It really is much tidier now, and we will be working with residents, so hopefully we can make that better than ever," he said. An Enfield Council spokesman denied that the authority had been shown up by its conscientious neighbours. He said, "We clean this alleyway every Tuesday. The problem with fouling is caused by inconsiderate dog owners who refuse to clean up after their pets and instead believe that it is fair for other people, including children who use the alleyway, to dodge the mess they cause."
Perhaps they should just brush it all over to the Haringey side. That would be the easy answer. The blood test unit at Chase Farm Hospital has been relocated at its Enfield site. Patients previously had to queue outside before having blood taken, but the centre has been moved and can now be found next to the Urgent Care Centre. Royal Free London NHS Trust took over Chase Farm Hospital and Barnet Hospital in July, and Chief Executive David Sloman promised to move the blood test unit before the winter. Fiona Jackson, director of Chase Farm Hospital, said the new location is much more convenient for patients. There is plenty of room inside, so they no longer have to wait in the cold and rain. We hope this will make a big difference to the patients at Chase Farm Hospital. Mr. Sloman added, "I'm pleased we've been able to find a more suitable location for our blood test unit. Something like this can make a huge difference to our patients. This is part of our commitment to improve facilities at Chase Farm and to modernise the hospital." A planning application is expected to be submitted to Enfield Borough Council in November, and work on the redevelopment is due to begin next year.
Elderly residents who own property and are in long-term care are being urged to rent out their homes to families in need of help to fund the cost of care. Under the Keeping House scheme, which was launched in February, homes can be leased to the council for a fixed period of 5 years, with the authority guaranteeing rental income to the owner, which can be put towards residential care costs. Since the scheme's inception, the council has reached agreement with families to lease 18 properties, and it believes there are about 80 other homeowners in the borough who are eligible. Don McGowan, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, said, "Throughout the period, owners have peace of mind that their property is secure and well maintained, and the regular rental income helps them to retain their savings. This is a solution for the property owners, the council, and those in greatest housing need. Flats, maisonettes, bungalows, houses with 1, 2, 3 bedrooms or larger are considered for the scheme. And for properties needing repairs, the council is prepared to cover up to 80% of the work. The council believes it is a win-win situation because, for people moving into long-term care, the cost, time and effort needed to maintain an empty property can prove challenging, while homes that remain unoccupied for lengthy periods often fallen into disrepair and can attract antisocial behaviour. The scheme is fully managed by the council, meaning that once a lease period is agreed, rent will be paid regardless of whether the property is occupied or not. At the end of the lease period, the property is returned to the owner, or the lease can be extended. To find out more about the scheme, a leaflet with details about eligibility, grant funding for renovation work, and other advice can be downloaded from the Council's website at www.enfield.gov.uk. Property owners can register their interest by emailing adultsocialcare@enfield.gov.uk or by calling 020 8379 1001.
Continuing the theme of property, we now have a letter from Jill Harrison, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Enfield Citizens Advice Bureau. I write further to the letter from Mr. Tibby in last week's Advertiser, Landlord Licenses, Tenants the Losers. I am sure that Mr. Tibby is one of the responsible majority of landlords. Unfortunately, here at Citizens Advice Bureau, we regularly see tenants who are unfortunate enough to rent from one of the small minority of rogue landlords and who are living in appalling housing conditions. Our Home Visits officer has seen properties so damp that water is running down the walls. Such housing conditions cause physical and mental ill health in those unlucky to live in them. These landlords are often undercutting reputable landlords by offering cheap, poorly maintained and badly managed accommodation. Licensing is one tool which can help to create a level playing field, so decent landlords who are investing in the proper management, maintenance and repair of their property will no longer be undercut by an unscrupulous minority who avoid their responsibilities. It is in no one's interest for Enfield to get a reputation as an area filled with poor quality, private rented homes afflicted by antisocial behaviour.
2 men have been ordered to pay more than £700 after being convicted of spitting. John Vidine of Elstree Gardens, Edmonton, and Walter Lepitac of Park Lane, Tottenham, were sentenced in their absence at Tottenham Magistrates Court on October the 2nd for spitting in the street. Vidine was seen spitting in 4 Street, Edmonton, on March 31st and ordered to pay a £100 fine, £250 costs, and a £20 victim surcharge. Lepitac pleaded guilty by post to spitting, also in 4 Street, Edmonton, on April the 7th, and was ordered to pay a £100 fine, £250 costs, and a £20 victim surcharge. Enfield Borough Council's Cabinet Member for Environment and Community Safety, Councillor Chris Bond, said, "Spitting is a frankly disgusting habit and has no place in a civilised society. While I'm happy these sentences will act as a deterrent, it's disappointing that people feel the need to spray spit all over our streets, and we'll continue to prosecute people who clearly do not know how to behave in a decent manner publicly."
We have now reached the end of side 1 of this tape. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over, and start side 2. See you there.